We began December by looking at an inconsequential fanfic of a film that slapped Christmas into the story and expected us to care. Now, let's look at the complete opposite of that. Tokyo Godfathers may be the best anime Christmas film ever made, and I know that doesn't sound like much considering the lack of competition for that title, but I stand by that statement. Not only does it get the holiday, weaving its themes seamlessly into the story, it still would have been a great film even if it weren't set around the holidays. It's a story of human kindness, forgiveness, and the miracles and circumstances that bind us all together. And it's also never been dubbed. Yes, I know I've gone on the record that I wouldn't review a subtitled anime, and I know I have been rough on the sub-only fans of the past, but considering my options between eating my words and reneging on my statement or go forever without talking about Tokyo Godfathers, I'll choose the former. But I guess now is as good a time as any to explain why I choose dubs over subs, and don't worry, this detour won't take too long. The reason why I prefer to talk about dubs is threefold. One, they're much easier to edit around. You don't have to worry if the subtitles are going to leak into a cut you want to make, distracting the viewer's eye, making for a much cleaner experience. Two, I have a stronger foundation for my criticisms with the dub. Since I don't speak fluent Japanese, I really have no grounds for criticizing performances or dialogue since it's completely incomprehensible for me. And not being able to talk about the acting or the screenplay would be severely kneecapping my criticism. You could say that any fault on the dub should be applied to the studio and not the original creators, but sometimes you can only do so much in localization. Three, and most importantly, you lose a lot more than you gain when you are watching a subtitled anime. What do I mean by that? Well, let's have an unscientific as fuck experiment. Hey, Gabe? Oh, Gabe, no, not a bit. Real shit here. I just wanted you to do something for me.
Oh. What's up?
I just want you to watch this 30-second clip and answer some simple questions after you see it. This is absolutely 100% real, by the way. Gabe has not seen this clip, and he has no prior knowledge to these questions.
イエス様が貝羽桶に寝かせられたことは、つまり居場所がない人間たちに救いを、心の救いをもたらすためだったのです。人間、居場所がないことほど辛いことはありません。しかし世の中には自分のいる場所を持てない人がたくさんいます。
よく知ってら。
大変な孤独感の中であなたにいてほしい。そう誰かに言ってもらいたい。
俺はいいや。
黙りなさいよ、ちょっと。イエス様は孤立した者に生きる場所を作り出すためお生まれになったのです。
He was talking about... Boy. He was talking about Jesus. He was talking about, shit, I don't know what he was talking about. That was audible? It was really only one, maybe two guys. Curtains, people in chairs. One had a beret kind of looking hat, a beard. He was the guy who was whispering to another guy, which is why I say audible, because he wasn't audible, but I knew he was making a comment.
To make sure that this was not a single case thing, I chose another person to watch that same clip who has not seen this movie, nor has had any prior knowledge to the questions.
The preacher was, in the scene that we saw, the preacher was referring to the story of Jesus initially, to bring it into it. He was talking about he was a manger, and he used that to branch off to the idea that sometimes it's we feel like that we are not belonging in a place, or we don't have a place to be, and we're not part of something. And two of the people in the audience coded visually as homeless, at least for what I saw, agreed with him. One vocally, one asked him to shut up. And this scene, let's see, it would be three people that I can recall. The preacher, the bearded homeless man that was sleeping and loudly agreed with him, and the female homeless person that told him to shut up. In the background? Let's see. Well, Okay, I don't know if you would consider it a background. It is off to the side. It was often in the frame. The preacher had either a vase or a display of, can never pronounce this correctly, poinsettias?
Poinsettia.
Poinsettias, thank you. The red-leaved flowers usually referred to as, usually used around Christmas.
Admittedly, my sampling size is small, hence the unscientificness of this experiment, but it does present a discrepancy between subject and viewer. If you are training your eyes to look at only one small section of the frame, you're missing everything outside of that section. This extends further into cultural and reactionary schisms as well. We all know that not everything can be localized, as some anime are so entrenched in the Japanese culture and history that anyone unfamiliar with both will be completely lost as to what is happening, both on the surface and under, even with a pitch-perfect translation. This is even worse for comedies, since the experience of watching a comedy is completely different than reading a comedy. Honestly, the most you can realistically hope for in a translation is that the team behind it remain as true to the original material as possible, whether that means being a literal translation or going off the deep end for a deep, hearty laugh. Some titles call for it, some don't. And if you're wearing a Team 4-star shirt and you're calling bullshit on this, fuck you. Localization is a tumultuous issue with the late Satoshi Kon, because he, more than any other contemporary anime director, intended for his art to be distinctly Japanese. His characters look Japanese, his stories pertain to modern Japanese society, and he knew who his audience was because he chose them. His was a unique place in the anime scene, an auteur director whose lens looked inward, but was highly influenced by the outside world. Apparently, Satoshi Kon went on record that he was, by and large, unfamiliar with Japanese cinema. He knew and respected the greats, like Kurosawa, but his knowledge didn't extend much further than that. From only a gleaming perspective, one can derive his influences as less Takashi Miike, Takeshi Kitano, or even Hayao Miyazaki, and more David Lynch, Alfred Hitchcock, and Terry Gilliam. Which brings us back to Tokyo Godfathers, which might possibly be the most un-Satoshi Kon film Satoshi Kon ever made. The story remains planted firmly in reality. There's hardly any notions of surrealism or flights of fancy, which has been his creative calling card, save for one short scene. And yet, I feel this is his greatest directorial work, mainly because the film, and by extension the artist, effortlessly accomplishes what it sets out to do. How does it do it? Well, let's start at the top. Tokyo Godfathers follows three homeless people, Jin, Hana, and Miyuki, who happen upon a baby left in the garbage on Christmas Eve night. The film follows the three as they take it upon themselves to track down the baby's parents, slowly divulging more about themselves to each other. There are several themes at play here in the film, and one of the most obvious is the notion of abandonment. All three have abandoned their previous lives, each for different reasons, but with the same outcome. For Jin, his abandoning his family out of shame for his drinking and gambling leads him to lie about their fate, preferring them dead than to admit he was at fault.
俺だっていつも思ってるさ。一目娘に会えて。
じゃあ生きているのね。ああ。奥さんも。
今頃はきっと再婚でもして幸せに暮らしてるさ。
For Miyuki, her story is one of petulance and fear, unable to come to grips with what she did, just like Jin.
ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。
While Hana's story can be construed as abandoning her friends, her situation is much more different than the other two, as can be expected with a trans character. The film sadly doesn't delve too much into the life and hardships of trans people in Japan, and while I can see why that would be difficult to do to address this weighty topic on top of its already involved story, it's still sad to see this opportunity slip by. When you think about transsexualism in anime, you would think that there would be a bevy of titles that addresses the issue head-on. There are countless titles that revolve around the idea of gender identity, but unfortunately, the tone of most of these titles are that of comedy. Think less The Crying Game and more Some Like It Hot. To my knowledge, Hana here is the only transsexual character whose transsexualism isn't presented as a joke or a shock revelation, but rather just a facet of her character. It's not that she's not a comedic character, as her preening over the baby is not exactly dignified.
どうして泣き止まないでしょうか。お腹が空いたでしょうか。よーしよーしよーし。
病気かもしれないじゃん。
But there's always a sense of sadness about her station in life, that she really does want to become a mother but is biologically incapable of it. Also, there are subtle reminders of the kind of bigotry she has faced, considering how unfazed she is by the word fag or faggot. Although she does take umbrage at another F word.
クソはいいけどジジイは許さないわよ
For some reason. Though all three have been estranged from their families and friends, they find themselves back in their company through a series of events that could be best described as, well, circumstance and fate. Which is another theme that's at play here in the film, all the way from the most mundane circumstances, like the name Kyoko,
清子はね、私たちに見つけて欲しかったのよ。
清子なんで清子だよ
命名したの。清この夜の清子。
娘の清子です
どうも。
清子
え？
父さん。
to nothing short of divine intervention, which I can't show you because it's at the end of the film. Normally, I find these turns to be aggravating because they are usually used in the most haphazard, lazy way possible.
A gift from the gods, forged on Olympus. Why? Just accept it.
But Tokyo Godfathers uses this same principle of unexplainable phenomena and unbelievable coincidences not as a way of writing themselves out of a corner, but as a means to expound on the ties that bind us all. Every character in the story has at least one connection to another character, and by meeting these people, all three lives are changed. My favorite scene is when Miyuki is separated from the other two and winds up talking with a Mexican immigrant's wife, who doesn't speak Japanese. Neither one can really understand each other, but the connection of her being a mother speaks to Miyuki and reminds her of her own family. They can't say anything to each other, but that doesn't stop them from forming a bond. I love this scene for a number of reasons, but chief among them is that you typically don't see a Japanese character forced to interact with someone who doesn't speak Japanese in Japan. This multicultural aspect of the film is due in large part to the screenwriter Keiko Nobumoto, a longtime collaborator with Shinichiro Watanabe. While Satoshi Kon penned the story, it was Keiko who filled in the details, and realizing that, we can start to see many of Keiko's little touches not only with Tokyo Godfathers, but her other works as well. It could be said that during my Cowboy Bebop review, I largely misattributed details to Shinichiro Watanabe, when they were really more of Keiko's additions. And that further feeds into my fascination with Tokyo Godfathers. I said that the film feels very much unlike other pieces of Satoshi Kon's work, but you know what it does feel like? A Shinichiro Watanabe film. Scenes of characters idling away the hours, the fascination of those in odd living situations, and the muted color palette all scream Watanabe to me. Even with the touch and feel of a Watanabe anime, make no mistake, this is a Satoshi Kon film where it counts. Though the use of madness and surrealist imagery is severely downplayed, they do make their presence known at appropriate times. I can't go into much more detail than that because, again, spoilers, but I will say that by the end of the film, you will remember that it's Satoshi's name on the credits, not Shinichiro's. But this begs the question, why is this film set around the holidays? There's nothing inherently Christmassy about any of this. Which is true. Christmas doesn't own the notion of togetherness and family, and neither are exclusive to it. Further, the film distances itself from anything overtly Christmas-related. While the film does open on a children's choir singing Silent Night, from there on out, Christmas is used only as a setting. In fact, most of the film takes place after Christmas, with New Year's being the narrative ticking clock to find the baby's parents. So why set it around Christmas at all? Well, I think it's so we can more readily accept the film's themes. For one reason or another, when it's around Christmas, we all put aside our jaded cynicism and accept what would otherwise be a hokey little movie. You could transplant this story to sometime in January and the plot would be exactly the same, but the effect wouldn't. We'd roll our eyes at all the circumstances in the story. We laugh at the down-and-out miracle that saved the day at the end. I think subconsciously we all want life to be a bit more cheery and more fairy tale-like around the holidays, more than any other time of the year. We all want people in bad situations to be saved by a miracle, or a chance encounter, or even something as simple as a kind gesture. We all want to believe that the season can bring out the best in people. And guess what? For an hour and a half, during that brief window of time? It does. It's a Christmas movie through and through, embracing all the qualities we imbue the holiday with, all the while reminding us that these qualities can be found once December ends. The film is widely available, and I highly recommend you all sit down and watch it. It's as touching as a Christmas movie gets, anime or no. Speaking of December ending, that'll do it for Anime Abandoned for the year. I'd like to thank you all for joining us, and see you next...
Hold on there, Benny.
No, Gabe! Shut him off!
Go ahead, Gabe. Touch that keyboard. See what happens.
I don't know what to do! No, just... Great. Thank you for that one, Mark. I always wanted an hysterical butt monkey.
I'm not the one making him give you sponge baths. Plus, we're not done. Not by a long shot.
What, like a big year-end review? I thought we trashed the idea.
Oh, you wish we did. But I'll be fucked sideways if I let you end the year without taking down your biggest foe yet.
My biggest... No way! I don't even have that shit, so how can I even review...
Merry Christmas, Bennett.
Long live your Lord High Regent Sage! Long live Benetopia!